What up, y'all? It's your man, Abuamerican. Sun showers out here. I'm getting tired of looking at my ugly mug, so I figured I'd do this different. Now, what I'm going to do here in this particular video is I'm going to give you a little window into the mental madness that's Abuamerican. And I had a situation, negative, experience with women and power. They're admins of a group I was in. It's a mixed group, men and women. It's an Islamic group. And my thoughts on the prophetic statement, the statement of Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, may peace and blessings be upon him, that, paraphrasing, any nation that takes a woman as its ruler is destroyed. And we weren't given any details on this that I know of. Like, they'll make poison shawarma or something, I don't know, there was no clarity given, as far as I know, as to why. And maybe because of the intrinsic masculinity of the men of those times, they understood automatically why. We, of course, do not. But I'm starting to get a bigger picture here, and I believe that women should not be given any sort of power whatsoever, because I've never seen a situation. Let me think. I'm thinking. I don't want to be unjust. Let's just say by far and large, or by large and far, or however the term goes, I have not seen it except that a woman gets in a position of power and she abuses it. Now, I'm not going to go into the details of me and the group, but into great detail, but let's just say I noticed that there was women who were allowed to say outlandish things and there was no consequence. And men who said, controversial things, not outlandishly controversial, but just, controversial, they were immediately banned or castigated by the female admin. And although there were male admin, they're not as active as the female admin, because men generally, we do our thing and we're like, whatever, it's an opinion, it's the internet. But women, they really take things to heart. And it brought me to a statement that I read on Illimitable Men. Now, I remember I'm doing this right now at the top of my head. This is what's going through my mind. So, it might be all over the place, but I'm working through this. Now, Illimitable Men, he had an article. And somewhere in the article, I don't remember which one it was, he said, women are more concerned with how words make them feel and not what the words mean. Or no, it was something like women are more concerned with how things make them feel and they're not concerned with the truth. And this made me realize that the reason why women can get away with saying outlandishly ridiculous things without consequence is because they can relate to the emotional feelings that they're getting while we're going to be next to a street, but I got to go through this or I'm going to lose it. While reading their words or listening to their words, they can relate because they have a similar emotional condition. So when a woman says something crazy, I wouldn't do this because blah, 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 a woman can be like, yeah, I can feel that. And this brought me to another thing. Have you ever noticed what happens when women come into positions of power or even into male spaces? They drag in other women. Why? Because women operate off of consensus. And therefore, they understand that they're a minority, and women know this stuff. I've come to realize women understand this. And that's why they drag in their friends, because, I need a consensus. And they also understand how male thirst works. And so they understand that they can build a consensus amongst the men. Even if the guy doesn't agree, they understand that they'll agree with her because he wants to get something from her. Reed understood to be he wants hoo-ha from her, which she's not going to give him. Now, when you put a woman in power, she no longer needs consensus. And this is why they just become bullies when they become admins of groups. And it's funny because I was accused of being a bully in that particular group, and I had no power to bully anybody. It's the internet. You can block me and you won't see my words. There's no bullying. But because I had a controversial statement or opinion, and it wasn't really that controversial, it was just me defending the truth, but they just didn't like the way I was defending the truth, which is a weird thing. I was kicked out of the group. And the people who were upon falsehood, making falsehood statements, yeah, they're still in the group. This is what happens when you put women in power. First, they try and run the show by way of consensus, aka if we look at the West and how they've been given the vote and how they've messed up the West by being given the vote. That's one. Then they use male thirst to back them to enforce their will. So in this specific case, I don't know what the brother is who runs the group, because there's a brother who owns the group, but a brother put women in power. So they use their position as women with men to get power. Women would not have power if men did not give it to them. Period, point, fact. They lack the intellectual capacity to seize power, and they lack the physical capacity to seize power. They lack the willpower to seize power. If they had any of that, then you would not find that it is expected of the man to initiate contact when it comes down to relationships. It would be expected to be women, or it would be 50-50. But no, there's an expectation that men do this. Why? Because it's not in their nature to be forward and powerful people. But when they get it, they abuse it. So, where are we? Consensus through male thirst. Anyway, these are my thoughts. When we look at the West and what's going on in the West is gynocentric. And the West is being destroyed. Women no longer know their place, which is really being the childbearers, the progenitors, and the creators of the next generation. That's their job, really. And they've given up having children. So when we look at, like, let's say in specific the white race, they're dying off in mass numbers. I mean, we say mass numbers, but the reality is there are dying people in Europe. You know, they're going to be extinct. And why? Because the women have been allowed to just make these decisions on their own. That, I'm going to go study, I'm going to go work. And yeah, I don't think it should be that simple. I think a woman should have children. Then, after she has children, you know, and they're raised to a certain age, she should be allowed to work and go to school and whatever else. I honestly believe this. You might call that misogynistic, whatever, harsh, over patriarchally, toxic masculinity, call it what you like. But I bet you a nation that I run under those rules will not have a population problem, a replacement population problem. We look at like how women operate off of how things make them feel in the West. And you are not allowed to make a woman feel bad. And if you do, online, they can go after your job in the real world. Don't just suck up it and take it, you know, and welcome to the real world, you know, lions and tigers and bears and all that. No. Nope. No, we got to go after your job. We want to make you suffer. It's women who are pushing. Sorry, it's loud here. It's women who are pushing this entire LBGT gay agenda. You don't really find men like pushing that stuff very hard. It's women. They're the real powerhouses behind all of these movements, including Black Lives Matter. Why? If you haven't noticed, or if you haven't paid attention, women tend to be more sexually fluid than men are. And this makes sense, actually. But for a man, it doesn't. So, yeah. You know, a man, and you hear this a lot, a man says, you hear this in the black community, I want children. Oh, darn you, now I gotta figure out how to tie it with this phone. You hear men say, I want children that look like me. And this is what you hear in the black community and why they don't race mix. A woman doesn't have to have that problem. She doesn't have that problem at all. Even if the child doesn't look like her in terms of color, it grew inside of her. She's always going to have that feeling that it was my child. She understands that intrinsically, biologically. That must be a very powerful thing. For men, we have a slightly more detached type of situation. we drop the sperm, we can hit and quit and all these other issues that we got going on, that it makes it a little bit more difficult for us if we look at a child and it doesn't look like us. You know, we automatically suspicious. Women don't have to worry about that. Anyway, the point of that is, what was the point of that? I got sidetracked. Darn brain of mine. Anyway, why is there no paternity law? Let's just go into that since we're here. Women oppose it more than anyone else. And Mari said it himself. He says, I'll be out of business tomorrow if they put in a paternity law. This guy here is acting suspicious. I might have to beat him up. Give me a second. Yeah, this guy, he's acting real suspicious. All right, this dude's about to get mushed. And now he's hiding in the bush. No, he's just keep stepping. Walk through this little area here, and it's kind of cut off from sight of everything. It's through an industrial area. I'm always packing some sort of weapon. It's not this umbrella. Yeah, I got me a little folding knife. Not little, but it's big enough to make you wish I didn't cut you when I do. Anyway, women in power, they shouldn't have it. This is my simple concept and idea. Anytime they have it, they abuse it. They're not good with power. They shouldn't have it. And when they go into something, the first thing they do is create a consensus, and that consensus is based upon nothing more than their feelings. If there is no consensus, they seek the power. And then when they seek power, they become oppressive and abusive with it. Feminism is proof of this. Manspreading has become a thing. I mean, what is manspreading? I mean, really? They make any and every issue an issue because power is something that they want to just exert against those who they feel, exactly, right there, those they feel, blah, blah, whatever is going on in that freaking madhouse turmoil in their chests. And again, I'll say it again, I know I just spit that out, but I don't really dislike women. I don't at all. I just don't think they should have positions of authority. This is part of my religion, and I understand it more and more the more I come into interaction with women who are in positions of power. Now, there are exceptions. I work with a woman right now. I've had no negative experience with her. She's a supervisor. But it's odd to see her there because she doesn't really do anything. You don't see her, it's a really male-dominated field I'm in. So it's very strange to see her there. And she's not doing any of the male-dominated stuff. She's just sitting in the office all day. Everybody else is out busting her butt. We have a girl that works there, but she's not a supervisor, and she lifts the heavy weight. She does all her stuff. She pulls her weight. But that's a different story, the way she behaves. Good God. So anyway, to wrap this up, this is 13 minutes, but you see what goes through my head at times. This is the things that run through my head. Experiences sort of just collide, and then they come up to a theory and a hypothesis, based off of my observations and experiences. In conclusion, women shouldn't have power. The moment you let them in the door in any male space, they're going to drag in other women with them so that they can have a power foothold if they can't dominate the men there with their sexual charm, So, and don't think women don't know that they pit other men against other men. They know they do it. So even if they don't get power, they're going to seek power by way of, consensus, by getting the vast majority of men on their side. And they'll use all the tools in their toolbox to get it. Act like they like you. Act like, I'm going to give you some. And then they understand that you're going to cave the average beta male, which is the vast majority of men. And then they're going to gain power through the vast majority of the beta males. Be aware, guys. You get any sort of office, any sort of online forum, whatever, you keep women out of that space. Keep not out of the space in general. I mean, you can't avoid it. They're half the population or a little bit more, but keep them out of the positions of power. You don't believe me? Go check out that lady, Roots Royal, Royal El Kutno, or whatever the hell her name is. The lady's a shaitan. You know, she's a straight devil. But, you know, she's a snake with a unicorn hat on. Very, very, very perniciously evil woman with a cotton candy smile. They don't belong in positions of power. Anyway, this is your man, Abuamerican. Catch me on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook. And Steam it. All at Abuamerican. I'm out.